As the grand halls of Forrester Crest fell into hushed anticipation, the sprawling estate's marble corridors were lined with wreaths of white lilies and roses, their fragrance both a salve and a sting to every heart that passed by. Beneath crystal chandeliers, attendants in tailored black suits arranged final touches on the pulpit where Luna Nozawa's casket was to lie in state, unaware that the fragile innocence they mourned had not fully slipped from this world. Preparations for the funeral were meticulous, music playlists chosen, readings assigned, floral arrangements perfected to capture the gentle brightness Luna had brought to each life she touched. But beneath the veneer of solemn ritual, a far darker secret festered. Dr. Lee Finnegan, whose own grief at Luna's fate was raw and relentless, had carried in her possession a single file that could overturn the carefully orchestrated farewell. Luna's chart, showing vital signs that still flickered on the ventilator deep within the ICU. Every breath, every mechanical hiss through the tube, was a testament to life's stubborn refusal to yield, yet Lee had chosen to keep that truth buried. From the moment Lee realized the oscillating waveform and faint oxygen saturation, documented in her handwriting beneath rows of impersonal hospital printouts, she had known she faced a moral crucible. Her training demanded transparency, her heart demanded mercy, yet her loyalty to the Spencer and Forrester families, both reeling from scandal and loss, demanded discretion. If word ever got out that Luna's funeral was a facade for a girl clinging to life on a respirator, the delicate alliance between Bill Spencer's embattled media empire and Eric Forrester's faltering fashion dynasty would shatter into a bloodied battleground. Already, the Spencer board was girding for fallout from Bill's disappearance and the resulting corporate coup, while the Forresters braced for public outrage over Quinn Fuller's attempted inheritance hijack. The last thing either clan needed was a second explosion of grief and accusation that threatened to rip apart their remaining bonds. Lee had stashed Luna's file inside a locked drawer in her private office, telling only herself that she acted from compassion. Shielding the family from renewed agony, preserving the dignity of the girl she had sworn to save, yet each lucid thought wrestled with growing guilt that by denying Luna's only chance at a truly peaceful passing, she might be prolonging a life in intolerable limbo. Outside the hospital wing, Kai Logan paced with mounting dread, the scuffed leather of her shoes scuffing the polished floor as she replayed Lee's furtive glance each time a family member inquired after Luna's final moments. Kai's own promise to deliver a candid update to Ridge and Steffi seemed hollow, and now she wondered if Lee had deliberately misled her, if instructions to keep everyone at bay had signified more than mere protocol. Kai's deposition of normalcy was strained. Every time a mourner arrived, she watched them chant in quiet disbelief that Luna would never rise from the embalming table, never again play the piano in that sunlit corner of the rec room, never again twirl in the art therapy class with the delight of a child hearing waves for the first time. And yet, for Lee, each step towards the funeral parlor was a step away from the girl she still observed through glass partitions, her chest heaving with mechanical breath, each exhalation a plea for release or redemption. Lee could not decide which. Within the Spencer Publications tower, Wyatt and Katie Logan prepared a joint statement of mourning, words that would be read aloud by anchors and live-streamed across social platforms at precisely 10 a.m. PST, intended to unify the company in grief and deflect creeping rumors of scandal. Yet when Wyatt's phone vibrated with an anonymous tip, "Check the respirator logs, Luna isn't dead," he felt his blood run cold. The messenger had attached a soldier's steady photograph of Luna's vitals monitor, time-stamped 2 hours earlier, showing a steady heart rate of 75. Wyatt's hands trembled as he locked eyes with Katie, who met his gaze and instantly knew the funeral was built on sand and lies. They hurried through the gleaming lobby, past portraits of Bill's fearless leadership and headlines boasted across floor-to-ceiling windows, and ascended to the rooftop helipad where they confronted Lee. Wyatt's voice was raw. "Why would you hide this from us?" Lee, face streaked with exhaustion and tears unshed, whispered that she could not bear the family's pain anew, that she believed the closure of a funeral could spare them months of agonizing decisions in an ICU corridor. Katie, ever the strategist, insisted on seeing the file, her corporate instincts warring with her sorrow as she realized the public relations nightmare that would ignite if Luna's breathing tube became the center of a legal battle. Meanwhile, at Forrester Creations' private gallery space, where Eric's honorary fashion show for Luna's Innocence capsule collection was to double as a memorial, Donna Logan pinned black ribbons onto corsages while fielding calls from reporters. Every headline teetered between tribute and exposé, beloved young model passes, industry mourns red one, suspicious circumstances. Was Luna truly gone? Read another with a provocative question mark. Ridge, already fragile from Eric's health decline and reeling from Quinn's ex-wife Gambit, pleaded for time to grieve in privacy. But at the first murmur that Lee withheld medical records, his protective instincts ignited a roar of defiance. "No funeral until I know she's truly gone," he demanded, his voice echoing across the echo chamber of social media clamor. Hope Logan, torn between loyalty to the Forresters and sympathy for Spencer's plight, refrained from taking sides at first, but when Zoe Buckingham overheard her mention a ventilator in the ICU, the secret threatened to spill into the open like gasoline on a spark. Zoe leaked the rumor at midnight to a gossip blogger under a pseudonym, and by dawn, the rumor mill churned with conspiracy theories claiming Lee had hidden Luna's survival to smooth over the corporate alliance, each retelling more lurid than the last. Faced with an impending media frenzy, Wyatt, Katie, Ridge, and Donna convened in the dimly lit executive suite above the funeral home's chapel. Lee produced Luna's chart, the pages yellowed at the edges from midnight vigils and tear-stained annotations. "She's ventilator-dependent," Lee confessed, her words fracturing the room's brittle calm. "Every day she's trapped between life and death, and no one can bear the choice of pulling the tube or letting her linger." Ridge slammed a fist on the mahogany table, flowers on the altar floor rattling like the pulse of panic. "You're telling us this now? On the eve of her funeral?" Katie's composure cracked as she surveyed the assembled patriarchs and heirs, each face etched with betrayal. Bill's name hung in the air as his absence deepened the wound, his decision to abduct Liam in a private chopper, his self-imposed exile in a remote cabin, had removed his moral authority to adjudicate Luna's fate, leaving the two families at loggerheads over who would hold the scissors to cut her life support. In the hours that followed, litigious wrath and shattered grief marched hand in hand. Lawyers were summoned by private jet, medical ethicists were consulted for urgent conference calls, corporate compliance officers drafted emergency memos on familial guardianship. The question at the heart of every conversation was excruciatingly simple. Who has the legal and moral right to decide whether Luna's ventilator be withdrawn? The Spencer clan pointed to Poppy's guardianship papers and Bill's sponsorship of Luna's medical insurance. The Forresters invoked Eric's adoptive parent authority and the stipulations of Luna's birth mother's final wishes buried in a sealed codicil. Each side presented affidavits, family trusts, and power of attorney documents that rattled like weapons in a courtroom siege. Meanwhile, Lee, distraught and haunted by the girl's labored breaths, made a desperate plea. "Let us vote together in a private council. Let the families whose hearts she touched decide in unity rather than in public warfare." But both Ridge and Katie, their trust eroded by half-truths and deception, balked at any invitation to reconcile before the other acknowledged wrongdoing. As dusk fell and the chapel lights flickered on, the scene at Forrester Crest's courtyard became a tableau of anguished spectators. Black-clad mourners, who moments before had assumed they would kneel before a coffin, now clustered in tight huddles comparing rumors. Photographers cowered behind manicured hedges, drones hovered above, broadcasting every anguished tear and furrowed brow. Ridge raised his voice above the din, declaring that without full transparency, there would be no funeral, no final goodbye, only a cold, constructed pageant of grief meant to obscure the deeper torment within the hospital's walls. Katie countered that the family's public refusal to bury Luna might be interpreted as a bitter feud, compounding the damage to both dynasties' already fragile reputations. Through the glare of camera flashes, Poppy stumbled onto the scene, her composure as brittle as spun sugar. She released a shaky statement. Luna's life hung in the balance, both literally and metaphorically, and the families would not rest until the truth emerged. In that crucible of shared sorrow and simmering rage, a fragile alliance formed. Ridge and Wyatt, once locked in fevered rivalry, offered to convene a joint family council at the hospital, with Lee as guarantor of medical truth and Grace Buckingham as neutral observer. Legal teams would draft a solemn pact, a binding agreement to abide by whatever decision the council reached regarding life support. As midnight approached, the families walked through the hospital's sterile corridor together. Stoic Ridge at the lead, silent Bill's absence a specter beside them, until they reached the glass doors of the ICU. There, illuminated by the pale glow of monitors and the rhythmic hiss of the ventilator, lay Luna Nozawa, her chest rising and falling in testament to life's tenacity. In that moment, beneath the hush of beeping alarms and the soft squeeze of Lee's hand, the families saw reflected in Luna's fragile form the stakes of their own struggles. Love turned lethal by secrecy, power wielded like a blade against the innocent, and the fragile hope that unity and truth, even at the brink of despair, could yet reclaim what secrecy had stolen. As they crafted their pact in whispered vows, none could know whether Luna would awaken to their accord or whether, in choosing mercy over ambition, they would forever carry the weight of a life saved, or of a life finally, irrevocably lost. Eric Forrester's once steady heartbeat faltered under the weight of unspeakable grief, his robust frame reduced to fragile shards in the wake of Luna's shooting. Each labored inhalation seemed to echo the gunshots still resonating in his mind. And as doctors hovered over his bedside at Forrester Creations' private medical suite, it became clear that the patriarch's body was giving way under the emotional onslaught. Day after day he drifted in and out of consciousness, his skin pale as winter moonlight. And beneath the sterile hum of machines his family watched helplessly as the man who had weathered decades of high-stakes fashion rivalries and boardroom battles now wrestled with a far more intimate collapse, his heart weakened, his spirit unmoored. All because the child he had come to cherish lay broken on a hospital gurney after a bullet had ripped through her innocence. In the silence of his dimly lit room, Eric's pale blue eyes flickered open only to close again, as though unwilling to face the reality that Luna's laughter, once the sweetest melody in his life, could be silenced in an instant. Then, as the Forresters rallied around their fallen leader, Brooke at his side, Hope clutching his hand, Ridge pacing the room in a frenzy of suppressed panic. Quinn Fuller emerged from the shadows of her self-imposed exile, her entrance as sudden and unexpected as a thunderclap. She swept through the hospital doors in a swirl of silk and determination, her gaze flinty, her voice low yet resonant. She had returned not out of nostalgia or regret, but armed with a weaponized truth buried within the fine print of her 2012 divorce decree from Eric. Quinn revealed to the assembled family that buried deep in the clause concerning spousal capacity was a provision so precise and so chilling that it threatened to strip the Forrester empire of its steward at his most vulnerable. If Eric ever lost the cognitive or physical ability to care for his adopted daughter or manage the affairs of the family, legal guardianship and custody would revert not to his designates or blood kin, but to Quinn, his ex-wife. The room froze. Even the air seemed to stop moving as Quinn's words carved through the tension. She brandished a yellowed copy of the decree. The ink slightly faded, but the legalese unmistakable. In the event of incapacitation of spouse, all guardianships and fiduciary responsibilities revert to former spouse. In that moment, Quinn claimed she was no longer the jilted wife banished by Eric's vows of forever. She was the rightful guardian, poised to assume control over Luna's welfare. And, by extension, the lion's share of the Forrester legacy. Donna Logan, whose steadfast loyalty to her sister Brooke and devotion to the Forrester clan had never wavered, confronted Quinn in a clash of wills at Forrester Creations' marble-floored hall, her voice quivering with equal parts rage and fear as she demanded to see the clause in full. But when they stormed into the family's hidden safe, its door swung open to reveal rows of meticulously organized files. They discovered, to their horror, that the document was gone. Beneath the glare of cathedral-height windows, Donna's heart pounded as she rifled through folders stamped private, legal, estate, only to find the copy of that fateful clause had been erased, vanished without a trace. The implication was crystal clear. Someone had anticipated Quinn's lethal gambit and had spirited the critical evidence away, leaving her with nothing but her own testimony and a crowd of skeptical onlookers. In the ensuing frenzy, whispers spread like wildfire through the corridors of Forrester Creations. Who had orchestrated this erasure? Was someone within the family clandestinely protecting Eric by sabotaging Quinn's scheme? Or did the real culprit intend to use the missing clause as leverage for their own ulterior motives? As Quinn seethed, her carefully coiffed hair framing a mask of shock that threatened to slip into fury, Donna wrestled with the realization that this battle was far from straightforward. She had anticipated a courtroom showdown over a tangible piece of paper. Instead, she faced the specter of legal vanishing, a ghost clause that existed in Quinn's claim alone. Her own reputation, once buoyed by her uncanny knack for design diplomacy, now hung in the balance as she vowed to unearth a backup copy, refusing to let Quinn's claim go unchallenged. She enlisted the aid of an old friend from the firm of Perkins, Dalton and Associates, a paralegal renowned for ferreting out hidden files, and together they dived into digital archives, plowing through scanned documents from the Forrester Law Vault, hoping to unearth an electronic trail of the clause. Meanwhile, Ridge and Brooke, shaken by both Eric's decline and Quinn's audacious legal assault, retreated to their ancestral estate to pore over paper records by the firelight, their once steady marriage strained by the possibility that the man they loved might have no say in his own defense. Behind the scenes, a shadow war erupted. Quinn's attorneys prepared to petition the court for immediate temporary guardianship based on her testimony, threatening to override any objections from Donna or the Forresters. Donna's countersuit was drafted in a frenzy, an injunction demanding the production of the original clause, a restraining order against Quinn, and an emergency appeal to the presiding judge to appoint an independent guardian for Luna until the matter could be conclusively resolved. The stakes could not have been higher. If the clause were ever declared valid, Luna's custody and control of Eric's shares in Forrester Creations would fall into Quinn's hands, risking a hostile takeover of the company at the very moment of its greatest vulnerability. As the legal team squared off, Eric's condition worsened. Brooke stayed by his side, her tears falling quietly on his hand. Hope maintained a vigil at his door, fear tightening her chest. Ridge paced through the corridors like a restless ghost, vowing that no legal technicality would rob his father of both autonomy and legacy. In those fraught hours, each member of the Forrester clan grappled with the cruel irony that their towering dynasty, built on creativity, resilience, and familial love, could be upended not by an external rival, but by the hidden ink of a bygone divorce. And as Quinn's challenge advanced toward the courthouse steps, a legal juggernaut propelled by a clause that existed only in memory and in the shards of paper Quinn claimed to have possessed, The foresters steeled themselves for a war in which the spoils were more than social standing or corporate shares, the very soul of their family. And the fate of the dying patriarch hung in the balance.